just the regular, we're talking about two people of good character, just the regular tension, the regular discomfort, the regular conflict that involves two adults with different ideas, different backgrounds, different histories, different expectations, different personalities. That tension is almost inherent to getting to know someone, right? But in a marriage or just a relationship, a full-fledged relationship, that tension is balanced by emotional and physical intimacy. It's balanced, like it has a balance. It's kind of like, things get tense, but then things get easy. In the courtship, what I've noticed is that all of the tension is there, but none of the ease is there. All of the tension, just in the, talking about children, talking about work, talking about money, talking about, where do you want to live? Where do I want to live? How do I want to live? All of that tension is there, but with none of its counterbalance, right? Because all of the counterbalance is something that the two parties getting to know each other are trying to stay away from, right? In terms of how they're communicating, physically engaging each other. So they're trying to stay away from that, but the regular tension is there. And there's like naturally an imbalance in that. You know what I'm saying? There's a natural imbalance in that, right? So what I usually recommend is try to engage a courtship in as dispassionate a manner as you can when you're getting to know someone. Just once it appears that, okay, this is someone that I'm no longer just getting to know them, but I'm praying to God that this happens. But I think that's a different phase of, if it's just like, I don't know, I'm just meeting this person, then try not to get emotionally involved, right? Try to be, and this is why it's good to have some kind of representative, some kind of person that can be a little less infatuated, a little less emotionally involved. Just, okay, this is what he does for a living. This is, what he expects. This is where he lives. This is, you want to have someone that can ask those kinds of questions, because especially, those of us that try to live somewhat modestly, and I mean this brothers and sisters, sometimes it's just gratifying to have some attention, right? That can affect your thinking. Just to be on the, I converted to Islam when I was like 16, 17 years old. And I married Asia's mother, Allah yarhamuha, when I was 22, right? And I was a regular, and I'm not going to get specific, red-blooded American teenager, right? Before I accepted Islam. So accepting Islam and entering this community that esteemed virtues of like celibacy and abstinence, and that was very hard. Just like I had gone maybe 3-4 years as a practicing Muslim, never had a serious conversation with a woman where there was a romantic, so just when I was like just speaking with her, I couldn't get you. You're Muslim, I'm Muslim, we think maybe get married or something. It was so gratifying. It was, I mean, she turned out to be, mashallah, a very good woman. But even if she wasn't, I was thirsty, man. Even if I was starved for some attention. It's just, I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. It was one of those. It was really so. when you're in that place, maybe some things can get by you. Some of those red flags, you don't see them as clearly, right? So having that third party that's a little more clinical, a little more dispassionate, a little less involved emotionally, they can just say, this is what the demographic profile looks like. Once it becomes clear that, and again, I also think that, a courtship that drags on for a very, very long time is just a courtship in which both parties are waiting for the other person to do something that will dissuade them, from wanting to get married. Right? So I don't think it takes a very, very long time. But once it becomes clear that you've seen enough, you know enough to kind of go out on faith, I'm not saying communication should just stop. That's probably not a realistic expectation. But I think we shouldn't be engaging each other very, very intensely. Because it sounds counterintuitive, but it just creates, either one, the regular tension of just getting to know another person without the counterbalance, or some of our initial experiences becoming emotionally close are now connected with guilt. And you don't want that. It's too beautiful a thing. It's too precious a thing that, when I think about, a man and a woman being together for God's sake, I think about a relationship where they can engage each other emotionally, spiritually, and physically, and nobody has to say astaghfirullah. Nobody has to say, oh man, wait, should I say that? Should I use that tone of voice? Maybe I should use that tone of voice. We're actually not married. We're not, should I say that? So I think it should be kind of not an intentional kind of separating, but like, I've seen enough. I know I've heard enough. Because look, no matter how much you know, no matter how much reconnaissance you do, you won't really know a person until you live with them, right? You won't really, I don't care how many character references you pull in. You're asking his second grade teacher, well, ma'am, you taught him in second grade. So what do you know about it? You can ask his second grade, first grade, kindergarten. You really won't know this man until you live with him. So when you've seen enough to give your heart, now, until that point, investigate, right? Converse about those matters. Be intentional, right? Like really get in there and converse, talk, exchange. But once you know, I'm feeling this, I want this to happen, there's no need to keep having these 4-hour marathon conversations. This only leads to trouble. This only leads to trouble. I'm telling you, this only leads to trouble. In my experience, that no good comes out of this, right? Once you know what, I want to marry this man. I have a good feeling about this. I feel strongly enough about this to ask my Lord to make it happen. I want this to happen. There's no need. You only create, like I said, one, the problems that just come along with just, it's like you can't be in a relationship and not be in a relationship at the same time, right? So now you're not married to the person, but you just had a long day at work. You come home and you're just like, he just wasn't comforting enough. He wasn't a soft place to land. After a very tense day, and he's like, just trying to be modest. I'm trying to be, if you were my wife, the nature of my conversation would probably be different. I probably would be intentionally more comforting, intentionally, more coetous, flirtatious, but I can't do any of that because technically we're not, so it creates a lot of issues that I think are really, really unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? Now, specifically about Ramadan, it depends on where you are in getting to know this man. If you're to the place that like you really don't know him, right? You really don't know him. Even then, maybe you say, I'm very, very interested in getting to know you. If there is any reduction, any decrease in my communication, it's because, Ramadan is just, so involving that I'm not able to, I'm trying to, really conserve my sleep and really, it's a lot of community events and things like that. So don't take exception to the fact that, I'm not, like right on top of that WhatsApp message or right on top of that text message or something like that. Don't feel any kind of way about that. It's just kind of, where things are during the month of Ramadan. If you're at a place where like, I like this man, he likes me, it's like, look, Ramadan is a time for us to gain some spiritual clarity, about maybe the commitment that we're entering, the commitment that we're asking for, and really digging deep within ourselves to, gain some perspective about, what this really means. Because very few people really understand what this really means. Understanding what this really means, and we should take some time out, not to cool off in terms of, our affinity for one another, but, just to, kind of, zero in, as it were, spiritually to, what we're taking on. You know what I'm saying? You want to use Ramadan. So if you're at a place where it's kind of like, I'm still kind of getting to know him, I would just give him a heads up that, in the Ramadan, I don't, because I think, the thing about relationships is they're very, very intoxicating, especially when they're new. They're very, very intoxicating. So it would be very easy to just get consumed with this relationship in a way that, I don't know, you might be uncomfortable with. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. But I'll be making dua for you, and congratulations that you have something going. Alhamdulillah. This is we have so many brothers and sisters, seeking spouses. I think this should be an area of like communal concern for us. Like anybody who is serious about Islam in America, this should be at the top of their list of priorities, right? Like helping people get married, helping them start families. I don't think we have a greater priority than that. Not opening masajid, not opening schools, I think this should be like, as a community, top priority. So any way that we can assist, if you need us to vet somebody, check somebody out, grill somebody, interview somebody, just let us know. Just let us know, inshallah. But no, I'm very, very happy for you. If it's significant enough for you to mention in public on Monday, must be quite an exciting young man. Must be quite an exciting young man. Inshallah. Other questions, ideas? Yes.
Ramadan, can you discuss some ways to elevate our du'as? Like, for example, and relevant also to the book we're reading, we should call upon Allah with one of his names that is relevant to what we're asking.
Ramadan.
Can you repeat it for those at home, Salikam?
Saying that, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, Sister Indeed. The question was different ways we can elevate our dua, our supplication, our calling on Allah in the Ramadan. I think that when I think about, the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with regard to Ramadan, I think it's about kathratu dua, just calling on God abundantly, plentifully. Ramadan is the time when the worshiper of God, she experiences great closeness with God. And I always tell people, dua, it's very important to understand the reality of dua, right? Dua is, number one, It's the sunnah of God's messenger and all of God's messengers and the knowers of God, right? Men and women that know God, they called upon God. So we should never cease appealing directly to God in a language that we speak, right? Speaking directly to God, not in a formulaic or ritualistic way, but in a personal way, right? There isn't any man or woman in our tradition, and I say tradition writ large, meaning from Adam until present, that got close to God, that had a beautiful personal relationship with God without directly appealing to God, right? That being said, we have to know that the purpose of dua is really, it highlights the way that you relate to God, right? That God is close to you, that God listens to you, right? That God gives you what you ask for. It highlights your relationship with God. And this is why, if you want to know, and this is a secret that a lot of people don't know, if you look at people, all walks of life, that are firmest and most certain in their faith, they are always people that speak directly to God. These are the people that don't really need theological proofs, philosophical proofs, logical proofs. They know God is real because when I ask God for something, he gives it to them. They know God is real. In a sense, that dua is a mark of your personal access. That this is the ineffable, completely incomparable God, and I can just raise my voice, call upon him, and he will give me what I ask for, right? However, we should know that Allah is El-Khabir, Allah is the informed, right? God does not need you to articulate your want or your need for him to know that you're in need of it. It's not like when we make dua, we say, oh Allah, I would like, more inspiring employment. Then Allah is saying, I didn't know that. I'm glad you told me that. Because I didn't know that until you said it. No, it's not, right? That's not the case. But Allah does use your dua as a means of him giving you. Your dua is a means of his giving to you, right? Not that it's a necessity. You don't have to ask God for something for God to give you something, right? And the issue is not one that we will only get what we ask for. God gives us all sorts of things that we don't ask for, right? Now, in regard to the month of Ramadan, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would particularly ask God before breaking his fast, right? When you think about, and this is something that I think many of us are so habituated to fasting that we don't really think about the devotion that fasting requires. This is a person that if they were fasting merely for social conformity, I don't want anybody to say, oh my God, you're Muslim and you're not fasting. They could go somewhere privately and eat. Nobody would know. Nobody, who would know? I mean, you probably have to, get that little caramel off your cheek. It's like, you got caramel on your cheek. That's some sahur. I mean, but nobody would. So if you think about somebody giving up their most basic requirements, their most basic instinctual needs, just for God. Now they've reached the end of an entire day and they're about to, eat, right? At the time God said they could eat. Your state to God at that moment is it couldn't be any more pleasing. It's like she did it. She actually gave up her food, gave up her drink, right? Just for my sake. And she reached the end of an entire day. That is when you make dua to Allah. Right? That is when you make dua to Allah. And in terms of the name to call on Allah by, I don't know anything that is recorded from the Prophet ﷺ in terms of a particular name that you call on Allah by, during that time. But I would suggest appealing to Allah and making your means of appeal to Him the fasting that you just performed. I believe in you. I fasted for you. I gave up my food. I gave up my drink. My breath probably stinks, right? Just because you told me to. Now I'm asking of you X, Y, or Z. The funny thing is, people don't like that, but God loves that. When I wouldn't say it's holding God accountable, but it's when you mention that you said that you forgive all sins. You said you are the one who answers, the one who calls on you. Well, I'm calling on you. God loves that, right? That's not bad etiquette in your praying to God. You said that you always support those who rely upon you. Well, I'm relying upon you, right? You said that you're a Samia, you're the one who listens. Well, I'm calling. Right? This is actually a prophetic way of calling out to God. The Arabic language is very, very beautiful. And one of the things that I find very interesting about Arabic is that an understanding, and this I think English speakers will have some difficulty with this, an understanding of hierarchy is implicit in the language, right? An understanding of hierarchy, meaning where two people relate, how two people relate to each other. It's implicit in the language. So you have an Arabic grammatical form, fi'l al-amr, a command, right? And if one person is saying over another person, like me to my children, and I say, if I do this, it's taken to be a command, right? Or if I say, ukhruj, get out, it's a command. On the other hand, if two people who are equal in rank and one commands the other, do this, it's taken as raja, an appeal. Do this if you will. I'm not in a position to command you, but the language is the same. Right? If I do it, but if we're understood to be peers, it's understood I'm appealing to you. Could you, right? Could you, right? If one is saying, do this to a person that is over them. First, I said a person that's under them. Then I said a person that has the same rank. If you're appealing to a person that's over you, you still use the command verb, but it's taken as an appeal. Please do this. Right? I need you to do this. But the language in each case is exactly the same. Do it. But now you're talking it's like somebody appealing to a king. Have mercy. Give us. You're not in a position to command the king. You're appealing to the king. Please. Even if you don't say please, it's understood when you're saying, do this, do this. And they say, and when you use that language with Allah, yufham ala wajhi dua is understood to be dua. So we can be forceful in our language with God, is what I'm saying. It's understood to be dua. It's not a disrespect. In fact, some people say the opposite is a disrespect. If you say, Allah, if you want to, if you can, if, I don't know, maybe you're busy, but this is just little me here asking if you could, if you would, no. Forceful. Do this. Make this happen, right? I want this. right? Forgive me, forceful, is understood to be dua. I think some of us, we have a very difficult time speaking forcefully because we think like, who am I? I can't just say, grant this, do this. It's understood to be dua. It's understood to be dua. So I would say, calling on Allah and calling on Allah with certainty that He's listening and that He will grant you what you're asking for if it's good for you, right? If it's good for you. And then just making dua, Ramadan is an especially blessed time. This is, subhanAllah, it's like, if there's something you want to ask for, Binta, now is the time. And if there's something you want to be facilitated, this is the time to ask. If it's good for you, it will be done, inshallah. Right? This is the time to ask, inshallah. So I don't know anything in particular in terms of like a special way of calling on Allah, but I do know those internal states of certainty, sincerity, very, very important. And then the time before breaking your fast, right before Maghrib, these are especially good times to call upon Allah. And again, that dua can be used as a means of God giving you what you request. But most importantly, it's a means of you reinforcing your being a worshiper of God, right? God does not need you to articulate something to know that you want it. He knows, the most inward secrets of our hearts. It's not that, God's waiting for you to say, Sabi, I didn't know that. Really? Is that what you want? Oh, twins, okay. Exactly. Usually say, come on, babe, stop playing. Is that what? Other questions, ideas? Yes.
How do you balance the focus on the worship with some of the bars and how do you inviting people to break their fast with you?
It's interesting, man. I personally, I love this culture of iftar hosting, iftar hopping. I think it's great. It is truly, it has become kind of like the quintessential American Muslim bid'ah. It's a complete, if somebody said to Sayyidina Abu Bakr, you want to come to my iftar? He would have no idea. If somebody said to Sayyidina Umar, like, you come to my iftar? Like these kind of celebratory iftars are not, but I think in terms of ways that we can add to our tradition that resonate with us. I mean, we are, mashallah, man, a very, God has given us a great deal. So for us, these huge celebratory iftars with gourmet food and people come to the house, I mean, this is a part of our Islamic culture. And I think that, it should be embraced. I think the relationship between fasting and some of these social aspects is a clear one. That as you deny yourself, you become more aware of the needs of other people. Right? It's something that, like, in a sense, we spend so much time completely consumed with ourselves. What am I eating? What am I wearing? What am I doing? What am I buying? I'm shopping. That taking a step back from that in the most obvious way, like eating and drinking, you get a chance to really see. I think those 30 days of Ramadan, you get a chance to really see how excessive your indulgence is. Like, wow, especially around like second week, you realize, man, this isn't really all that bad. Like eating a breakfast and then skipping lunch and not all of the grazing and the snacking, and then having a very intentional meal at night. And you realize I could actually live like this. I could actually live like this, but I don't, because I am very much dedicated to satiating all of my appetites whenever I experience them. Right? I mean, we live in almost a paradisiacal kind of, I feel so I just grab the food, or just now DoorDash, you just, it's right there. It's like, you know, and I think that stepping back from that gives you an opportunity to say, wow, I mean, I'm hungry, but it's not a hunger of uncertainty. I know that at 6 o'clock, 6:15, I'm about to have a very delicious meal. I know that. There are people that are hungry just like this, and they don't. Imagine fasting and not, what if it was like a fast you could do and you didn't know when you were gonna break a fast? Say, well, babe, when is iftar? I don't know. Just keep going. Can you imagine how frustrating that would be? When is this over? When is it over? God knows. You'd attack me. What do you mean? I need to know how long I have to do this. So it does create this identification, you know, with other people. And it does produce, for me at least, this kind of self-actualization. Like, yo, half the time, man, I'm tripping. Especially if you're really engaging on Ramadan, like trying to refrain from arguing, trying not to, you really see that, like, wow, just to regain some equilibrium, I have to do something this austere, which means the majority of the time I'm way off the grid. You know what I'm saying? I have to do something this, just to come back to center. I have to do something, you know, this austere. So I would say, you know, attending those iftars is a good thing. You know, the Prophet ﷺ was at his most generous during the month of Ramadan, right? And I think that most of us, this is when we pay our zakat. This is when, you know, again, you know, we should be at our most charitable, right? This is when it's like, if someone asks, just try to give something. Right? We should be at our most charitable, you know. So I would say, you know, attending. And again, I mean, look, intention is important, but wrestling with your intention, wrestling with your sincerity should never be an impediment to helping a person in need. Person says, can you help me? I don't know if I'm doing it for God. No, my intention isn't there. Let me go back and do some spiritual work and then I'll call you. You know, it's just like, no, just help. Just help. Right? Just help them. You know, I think that one of the things we have to remember about sincerity is sincerity has no endpoint. There's no, whenever someone asks a question like, how do I know? There's no point at which a sincere person wakes up and says, I'm sincere. It was confirmed for me in my dream. I'm a sincere person. I don't think that's the way it works. I think sincerity is that willingness to ask the question, why am I doing this? As long as a person is asking that question, why am I doing this? What is my interest here? I think they can rest assured that they have at least one quality of a sincere person, which is that introspection, that willingness to ask, why am I doing this, man? What am I getting out of this? What do I want here? That's all it's about. You know, a person that is like passionately insincere is so consumed with whatever ulterior motive they have, they never think about that. They don't think about, you know, sincere people are sitting around thinking like, it's my intention. Whatever they do, whatever their interest is, got to show up at this iftar because this is the business partners are here, and I got a startup that I'm trying to launch, and I'm gonna want maybe some of these guys to come on as angel investors. Let me go to this iftar, and let me show my generosity by giving. That's what an insincere person is thinking, right? A sincere person is just asking, and am I going to this just because there's a lot of people that I would like to socially connect with that are going to be there? Or is it something else? Right? Why am I doing this? As long as you're asking the question, that's usually a good marker. That's a good indication of your sincerity. But there is no end zone. Right? You don't score like a touchdown in sincerity. I made it. A finish line. And sincerity doesn't have a finish line. I'm sincere. Yes. Right. In fact, I would even say that sincerity, humility, qualities like that, those kinds of virtues, they don't really recognize themselves. So anyone who says, in my humble opinion, it's probably not very humble. This is for them, this is a convention of speech. In my humble opinion. How humble is it? If you've identified it as humble, in my humble estimation, sir, it's like, really? But humility doesn't recognize itself. Sincerity doesn't recognize itself. I've never talked to one sincere person that said, man, it's just my sincerity. If you say, what makes you so effective at this work? My sincerity. It's how sincere I am. Now, Malcolm did say that. Malcolm made a comment like that. He just said, like, it's not my credentials, but my sincerity is those are my credentials. My sincerity, that's my credentialing. I don't take that comment as like, I'm so sincere. He's saying, man, what I lack in formal education, I make up for in real love and concern about the people that I'm trying to reach. But other than that, I've never heard a sincere person say, like, I'm so sincere. So no, just do your best. Do your best. Do your best. Be willing to ask the question. And I mean, have fun, man. One of the things that I say this all the time, people are probably tired of hearing me say it, but Christmas, man, was just always such a festive time when I was growing up. I mean, even now, you have Thanksgiving dinner, and then the minute that it's like Black Friday, like something physiological changes. I don't care. I know we're Muslims, but still, I can still feel it. But I tell you though, I've been feeling it less and less. And I don't think it has anything to do with me, the society. Christmas spirit is dead. I don't feel, I don't feel it anymore. I'm like, should I be thanking Allah? I don't, but the Christmas spirit is dead, man. And I was sitting there telling somebody that this is gonna sound like the craziest thing you heard from a Muslim. I actually lament the fact that I just don't feel it anymore. I'm like, I remember carolers and people from the Salvation Army and from the stores and certain movies always playing, certain songs on the radio, restaurants serving eggnog, and there was different flavors of hot cocoa, and it used to always be snow on the ground. You're bundled up, going from place to place, and you're shopping. It was like a very sensorial experience. Now, or maybe I'm just getting older, because now the whole thing just looks so commercial. It just looks like, right? I don't, but my point is, I think we have to strive to make Ramadan similarly memorable. Similarly, like, there should be, and I know for people who love to cook, it's hard to hold back. It's good to have some dishes that you only make in Ramadan. So that your friends, your kids are like, it's Ramadan, she's gonna make the, what I mean? Like, because outside of Ramadan, she doesn't make this. It's Ramadan, mom's gonna make the, right? Or, it's it's Ramadan, we have to decorate the house, we have to put up the Ramadan lantern, and we're gonna be visiting lots of people. It's Ramadan. And I will say, this is like one of the most triumphant moments of my Islam. I did feel something, maybe over the last 3 years, like I'm starting to have that same thing with Ramadan. Soon as the Chicago Hilal Committee makes that announcement, it's like, there's certain people, like Shimon and I would call each other, okay, bro, Allah, let us see one more, man. Here we go, man. Let's try to get the most out of this one. We do this every single year. And it's become something I look for. So they say, the fasting will start tonight, the fasting will start tomorrow. There's certain people, all the texts come in. And I'm just like, you expect me to respond to 100 texts, man? I can't, no way. So I just put Ramadan Kareem, forward. Ramadan Kareem, say it. Miss you, Akhi. You know what I'm saying? You just saw me today. That's not the point. You know what I'm saying? This is one message for, you know what I mean? So, so I do feel something. It's like, oh man, it's Ramadan. And you know what I'm saying? So, I think we should embrace the celebratory nature of Ramadan. I think that's very important, actually. We should embrace the celebratory, like celebrate. It's devotional, right? It's devotional, right? Read the Quran, pray Tarawih, spend time in the mosque, but celebrate too. Celebrate too. Have a good time. Try to be more easygoing. Let people see like, okay, he's in a different place this month. It's like normally this would really tick me off, but it's Ramadan, man. It's okay. Alhamdulillah. It's all right. Alhamdulillah. Other questions, ideas?
Now there's like a lot of stores, and I think mainstream ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like just because those like
We're being acknowledged.
there's resonate in more of a Western society.
I mean, look, in a certain sense, I would say that acknowledgement is inevitable. One thing that is just cold, but also kind of appreciable about capitalism is it really has no bias. Doesn't really, will sell you anything that you're willing to buy. They don't, I think that because we are people of, some principle, it's hard for us to like embrace something that clearly has no principle. Where it's just like, if you'll spend money on it, I'll sell it to you. Whatever Ramadan Mubarak. Am I saying it right? Spend some money with me. You know what I'm saying? Am I saying this right? Okay, look, Eid Mubarak, and it does feel like you're cheapening this you're cheapening this celebration, you're cheapening this month of devotion. At the same time, I would say that in America, every religious culture or even subculture is going to have that more superficial kind of top kind of aspect, and then it has the deeper kinds of layers and aspects and meaning. One of the I think wisdoms of recognizing that is seeing that they're not always in conflict with each other. They're not always in conflict with each other. It's like I recognize culture as kind of a widening net, right? That some people in their Islam and likewise in their Ramadan are at the very center of the core, so that even if they were on, a deserted island, if they knew it was Ramadan, it would still be special. As long as they had food and but they don't. They're so into like the core of what this is. That's all just noise to them, and God bless them. But what about that person that the only way that they would be able to get into Ramadan it's through the cards and the decorations and the television programs and you know, I guess I'm mature enough now to be thankful that they have that. If that is your Ramadan, it's a Hallmark card. If that's your expression of Ramadan, you know, some people are praying all night. Some people are giving thousands of dollars in charity. Some people are going out doing community service projects. Some people are visiting their family members. Some people are hosting people. But if you're somebody that's like, you know, my celebration of Ramadan is through going to Target and buying this and buying, well, mashallah. You know, but it could be I'm just very permissive because it's getting close to Ramadan. You know, I'm not like critical and stuck. It's like, hey man, it's all good, man. Whatever you know, I'm like that hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm not saying buying a Hallmark card makes you a weak Muslim, but I just think this way of looking at the world and people, that he said the strong believer is better than the weak, but in both of them there is good. Right. So even if somebody is into some of those superficialities, there's good in that too. Right. There's good in that too. You know, I mean, I would assume that, you know, the person engaging that stuff is doing so, you know, because Ramadan is important to them. Now, the fact that you have some multinational corporation making money from it, I mean, you know, I guess you know, like Chris Rock said, I mean, why the selective outrage? They're making money from everything else you buy. I mean, it's like, I won't, not my Ramadan, but everything else. I mean, they're making money from everything else you buy. So, I mean, you know, it's almost like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I understand the symbolic importance of Ramadan, right? At the same time, we have to be careful with excessive symbolism. You know, if something is like, I will not buy a Hallmark Ramadan card because I will not support this, you know, commercialization of Ramadan. But I bought Hallmark cards for everything else. I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, is that a statement? I don't. I mean, I'm really asking in an open-ended way. Is that are you making a statement here, or you know? So buy the Ramadan card. Buy the Ramadan card. And if you have an opportunity, you know, talking to people about kind of the significance of Ramadan, right? And don't think that, oh, they don't care about that. No, people actually do care about that. You know, this is, and I'm saying this on strong evidence from an anthropologist that I know. Ramadan is maybe the most widespread devotional act of a human community in the world. It is. You know, you don't have this many people all over the world engaging in devotional practice in any other human community. There's nothing, right? Especially one that involves great sacrifice. It's just unique. Right. So one of the great, I think, kind of paradoxes here is that whenever I talk about Ramadan to audiences of other faiths or no faith, I always say, yeah, I mean, if you think about some like super devoted, devout Muslim that's praying all the time and reading scripture, thinking about them fasting seems like a kind of a natural extension of their devotion. But what if I told you even Muslims that don't pray, even Muslims that, you know, have some things that they're working on in their personal lives, they still fast in the month of Ramadan? See, that is impressive. You know, there's Muslims I know that when the announcement that Ramadan is tomorrow is being made, they're having a drink. Tomorrow, it's my last one for about a month. Ramadan starts tomorrow. Stuck for the lot. This really happens. It's my last one. I'll be back about 30 days. Got to get myself together. You know what I mean? You know, I remember, I will never forget this. And I was like, this is silly and crazy, but it's like, subhanAllah, Khloe Kardashian was in a relationship with French Montana, the rapper. And she said, now they're not married. She said, yeah, so we haven't been able to have sex because it's Ramadan. But the fact that was his observance of Ramadan. Not Ramadan. That sounds like crazy. But he told not Ramadan. I don't do that Ramadan. People find that intriguing. Not the devout person, but the person like French Montana said, Chloe, not Ramadan. Not Ramadan. Not Ramadan. I can't do that. I can't. I mean, like really investigating, like what is that? Some people would denounce it as just, the super symbolism. But I think it's something deeper. Even the Prophet Muhammad, he would increase his good deeds, increase his charity, increase his praying in Ramadan. I think that's part of the blessing of the month. So when you talk to people like, no, I am fasting. I mean, I might come in and participate in some of the more shallow cards, and it's like the stores, happy Ramadan, Muslims. Now spend some money. I always think, and I realize we've run out of time. But I always think to myself, the people I know, they know when it's Ramadan. It's those date farmers in California. I know it's those people. Because the people like MedJewel dates, that's not a Muslim company. It's the name sounds kind of Arabic, like MedJewel, regular Californian date growers. But I bet every year they like Ramadan. They're just like, when is it this year? They know we in the black day. We gonna sell more dates than we ever sold in life. They know, man. Look, I would love to see like a documentary. I know that community, they're just like, wait, hold on. I have a little financial struggles, drought, but guess what? Ramadan, here it comes. Muslims about to get us back on our feet. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. I always think about that, man. That's their black. That's their Black Friday. It's like, oh man, being a day grower is tough. What? Ramadan starts in a week. It's about to get good. Alhamdulillah.